Hi everyone, this is God Hunt, your average CSGO fan. Today we are going to be going through the results of the Katowice planes and try to understand what it means for each other team. Now, before we delve into it, understand that this is coming from an outsider. I have no information whatsoever about what happens within any team, and I am only speculating. The depth of research you should expect are a few HLTV and Wikipedia pages. That being said, let's start with the bottom four from the plains. The first team that I'm going to be talking about is the Movistar Riders. I don't know much about this team except the fact that they're Spanish and have been participating in Tier 2 events for a long while. Just a little bit of research, and you can see that they have a long standing core of Steel, Alex, and Mopaz. They recently added Smoya, and I have no idea who the last guy is. Anyway, ever since Smoya has joined, the team has been gradually going up through the rankings. Personally, I think that Smoya is a very serviceable player in the tier 1 ranks, and due to very limited opportunities, he didn't get a crack at it. So, ever since Big kicked him, he has been looking for his upwards arc back into the tier 1 CS. First by going to NA, then the pandemic happened, and then being teamless for nearly 7 months, waiting, and finally getting a chance to stand in for Movistar Riders. I gotta commend his dedication though. Given the situation right now, especially with Valorant and the opportunities it must have presented. Anyway, Riders lost to Big 16-6 in the first matchup, and then 16-11 and 19-16 to Cloud9. They went out without winning a map but pushed C9 to the limit. It would have been great for the storylines if they could have taken the best of one against Big. Ultimately, you can't really blame them. Winning any match would have been a surprise, in my opinion. But Smuya has looked pretty good on the op, so best of luck to him. Moving on to Team 1, currently ranked 36th on the HLTV rankings, a Tier 2 NA team. There's not many storylines to build here. They lost TRK to former MIBR very early on in mid 2020, and Barton to Taco's newly formed Godsend. They lost 16 to 5 to Gambit. Gotta say, they got dealt a pretty rough hand there, in my opinion. And then lost 1 to 2 to Renegades. As I said, nothing much to report here. Let's move on to our next team. The next team that I'm going to be talking about is Vizsla All In. Currently ranked 69th on the HLTV rankings, 5th best team from Poland. To be honest, things are looking pretty rough out here for Poland, since Diha is the only Polish player anywhere close to Tier 1 CS, that too in ENS. So, arguments can be made against it. This clearly shows the lack of talent development there, which people like Neo, Taz, and other Polish legends are now trying to do. But the void has now been created with so many passionate Polish fans who have no tier 1 teams to cheer. And it is devastating given the history. If I talk about Vizsla in particular, taking a map of complexity can be called a good result, albeit complexity are not in the best of form themselves. They went out losing 16-10 to VP and 1-2 against complexity. Next up, we have Fnatic. And oh boy, there's a few points that I want to talk about. First of all, I want to admit that I'm a Fnatic fan and I am disappointed. Now, they went out without winning a single map. They lost 16-9 to OG, which I'm ready to forgive. But then, they lost 2-0, 16-12 and 16-9 against MIBR, which in my opinion, no one can or should forgive. Bear in mind, after adding Gikino, they had a very good showing at Summit, where they placed second after Virtus Pro, and we know where Virtus Pro is right now. Talking about Gikino, he has been an opper in his previous teams, and I was expecting him to take that from JW, but we didn't see that here. As much as I love JW, I don't want him to be the main opper because he plays outrageously aggressive, often losing the duel very early on in the round, and puts his team in a very big disadvantage and also gives up the op. The op is so important in a team's game plan, and having that weapon in the hands of such a volatile person just throws an entire aspect of the game plan out the window. That's just my 2 cents. Anyway, after going out flat in Katowice, Pro League has now become very important for them. If they show similar face there, questions will start to rise, and in my opinion, will require heavy role shifts for the team to be functional. But I still very much believe in them. Now, let's move on to the teams who placed 9 to 12th. First up, we have Renegades from the Down Under, recently losing their IGL slash father Dexter to Mousesports. They added Alistar from Order, who was their opper. They came in with very little practice. As chance would have it, their first match was against Mousesports, and on the paper, it looked like they had a chance to upset as both teams came in very weak. It ended up being a very close 16 to 14 affair, where at one point Renegades were up 12 to 6, but they ran out of steam on the T side, which is kind of expected when you lose your IGL. Australia till now has produced a few tier 1 teams. Arguably, the best of them have signed with a Russian org called Extremum. Renegades have always been the dark horse from Australia. They are known to dominate their domestic scene, but for them to be competitive in the tier 1 scene, they need a few months of practice under their belt. Also, they're in Europe right now. I hope they participate in a few tier 2 competitions here to get the experience, but I haven't seen them do so yet. I think they can be a consistent top 20 team, but I also think that how competitive tier 1 scene is right now, being a consistent top 20 team will be an achievement for a team like Renegades. Now let's move on to the Colossus. Following the route of Mr. Jason Lake, Henry Greer took the approach of building a lineup from scratch. This lineup was built in October 2020 with the purpose of being a top 5 team in the world. Currently ranked 20th in the world, they certainly have a long way to go. I also think that Cloud9 are under more criticism than complexity when they built the Juggernaut, solely because of the fact they shared the contract numbers. Mr. Price Tag has not yet paid off. He's certainly not showing the performance he was able to pull off in Astralis. His stats might become better going forward because it has been confirmed that he will be taking on the opping duties. They're under fire, which they should be. It's been 6 months without a podium finish for the team. If this continues, the fans will lose hope. They need to prove that they're a championship caliber team, and they need to do it now. Next up on the list is MIBR. Let's be real here. They were supposed to have a much better team with KNG at the helm. But as that deal went awry, they had to buy the Boom Quartet because they can't be without the team, given the following and the deals they have. I feel like the only good result they will have is upsetting Fnatic. I don't expect much from them moving forward. I see them more as a filler team until they find a better team. Unfortunately, because they are called made in Brazil, they can't have an international team until it is majority Brazilian. Let's see what happens with the org in the future. Last team that I'll discuss in this video will be the Juggernaut. 2020 didn't end well, neither did 2021 start well for them as they had to play with two different stand-ins. Despite this situation, a lot of people started to believe that JKS was the cause of this downfall. Stats indicated similar sentiments, but many analysts pointed out that BlameF and company didn't feel motivated enough to put the piece of the puzzle together. And how could they, when half the time they don't even know which pieces they are going to have? Fortunately for them, Poison joined the team back before Blast Groups this year, and it felt like they started where they left off last year. Coming in hot, they topped their group without dropping a single map with wins against Vitality, G2 and EG. They beat Vitality so hard that Apex had to take a break to recover from the loss. It felt like everything returned to normal for them. They came into Katowice with their heads held high and you would personally have bet on them to qualify. First crack showed when they dropped Mirage against Vizsla in a tight 19 to 17 affair, but they took the match 2 to 1 against them. In the next match, they choked a 15 to 8 lead against Mouse Sports on Dust 2, which was the second map, and then got demolished on Nuke, losing 2 to 1 against a team which came in with just a few days of practice. This early exit indicated that the result in Blast Ropes was due to the honeymoon period and they need more time to put things in order. Now that they have had time, Pro League becomes a proving ground for them to show that they are a championship contending team, the juggernaut they promised. Well, this concludes my storytelling today. Tune in a few days for a similar video on the main event. Comment below if you want to add something and like the video if you liked it. Until then, goodbye and take care.